with that being said, we're going to head into the Gold Cup because it's just one thing after the next, folks. So obviously, for those of you who don't know, we've been drawn into a tough group with USA, Saudi Arabia, and I don't know why it's slipping me right now. The other team, Haiti, right? So that game is going to be tomorrow. We looked at I attended the pre-match press conference with both Pochettino and Dwight Yorke. You can take a look at that. I'll have a link up there. It'll be popping up, and also, I'll send that out to the various channels and so on. So, Andre, we elaborated on the group reaction. In fact, what we want out of this Gold Cup. But let's talk specifically about USA, Pochettino versus Yorke. USA has not had a great set of results in the last couple of games. Pochettino came in with a lot of fanfare. He's an experienced coach, Argentinian coach, Chelsea, PSG. Did a great job at Tottenham. I think Tottenham fans probably miss him right now, even though they won a trophy. What are your thoughts about us heading into this game? Because traditionally, we are always the underdogs in this game. But we have been able, especially in recent times, to get that result that matters. We all know about that World Cup in 2018. The Alvin Jones thing. We were at probably our lowest. I know the Americans don't forget this. And then recently against in the Concacaf Nations League, we got a 2-1, which was brilliant. I managed to speak to Berhalter after the game, and he was not in a good mood. Even though he's a great guy, I love him as a coach. I did feel sorry when he was sacked, but it just shows you the demanding nature and the ambition of the U.S. men's national team. So with that being said, Trinidad and Tobago on a high, USA in a bit of a preparation period because they are hosting the tournament. What are your thoughts heading into this game?
Well, I mean, despite the fact that the USA are on a bad run, but you have to look at the quality of opposition that could generated that bad run. Most recently, they lost 4-0 to Switzerland, who are one of the stronger teams in Europe. So it's not to say they lost 4-0 to Guatemala or Jamaica or teams that are closer to our level. They lost to a high-performing European team. And I know that they lost a couple of games before where they lost to Canada. I'm sorry. Yes, it was Canada, and I believe Panama as well. In that game that the guy ran and took the selfie with Thierry Henry when he scored the winner. But the USA is looking to bounce back. They will be looking to bounce back. And I think they see Trinidad and Tobago as a perfect opportunity to bounce back because we are the underdogs. They are a lot stronger than us. And, I mean, they are going to come out they have to make a statement for this Gold Cup. Pochettino has to make a statement for this Gold Cup because I think if he does not do well in this tournament, I don't think he would last to the World Cup next year. So USA needs to win this group. They need to make it probably at least to the semis or the finals for confidence to be restored. And I think if they lose to Trinidad tomorrow, I think all hell will break loose in that camp. Like, that being said, in Trinidad's favor, I don't think it's their full World Cup squad. They're missing quite a few players. They have some players who have to play with their clubs in the Club World Cup because FIFA gave precedent to the Club World Cup over the international tournaments. So, for example, the Gold Cup, all the big players who've been playing with big clubs. So, if there are any American players playing with whether it be Chelsea or whatever team that throughout the world that has an American player or Canadian player, because I don't think I think Bayern Munich is in the tournament. So this guy from the left, oh my God, his name escapes me.
Davies.
Davies. I don't think Davies is playing for Canada. He's playing with Bayern Munich in that tournament. Just to give an example. So at the end of it all, it's not the strongest USA team, but it's still a team playing at a very high level. They will be looking to bounce back against Trinidad and Tobago. And we've had good fights. The last two games that we played against them were fairly even encounters where we won 1-2-1 when they got a player sent off. And even the game that they beat us 3-0, it was 0-0 up to the 83rd minute. We conceded the first goal in the 83rd minute, and then we kind of capitulated and conceded two more before the game ended, and we lost 3-0. But I think the guys are a little bit confident. I listened to Molino in the press conference today. I listened to Ajani speak about, raising the level against teams at the level of USA. And I think there's confidence in the squad. And what will be important for the team tomorrow would be a good start. They need to settle those nerves, start well. anything close to a Costa Rican start would be amazing because we really, really started well against Costa Rica. My jaw was dropping in the first 10, 15 minutes of that game against Costa Rica. I was wondering, who the hell am I watching? But it's the same kind of front foot football that Dwight Yorke wants to play. However, with that front foot football comes the consequence of defensive frailties. And that's where our Achilles heel lies in the squad. I think Dwight figured out who we have in the front line. It will be the three left footers. It will be Spicer, Levi. Well, Levi's not there, but we'll get to that in a minute. Levi, and in terms of our starting lineup, I think probably either Nati or Isaiah Lee will come in. And then you have Dante Silly and then Molino. So it's a front attacking four that we will have. And then it's to figure out, I know Daniel Phillips will play an anchor, and it's to figure out who will be the player next to him, Phillips, whether it be Noah Powder, whether it's Fortune, who I prefer Fortune there, or will it be Noah Powder, Rampersad, or Fortune. Now, so that's basically the front six of the team. So now we're looking at the back four, who I prefer Raymond in the back. Batu most likely will play. We have no other centre back, so most likely Shiggy will play. And then maybe Alvin Jones will play at right back for sentimental reasons, right?
Yes.
And then either Marvin or Denzel will play depending on who's fit. That most likely will be the lineup. Anything outside of that, I would be surprised. The only other switch I could see us doing is if we play three at the back, where we play Alvin as a right-sided centre back, Shiggy in the centre, and Batu on the left, and then we play Rio Cardines as a right wing back. And then we play Andre Raymond as a right wing back. That's the only other switch I might see taking place. But again, this is not for me to hit my head about. This is Dwight Yorke's job. He's being paid well to figure these things out. But I think once we get the right formation and we get get some confidence in the first few minutes, I think we'll have a good show. And these guys playing at a decent level. Spicer, I think the American squad is primarily an MLS squad. We have Dante Cini playing in the MLS regularly. You have Anjani 14 playing in the MLS regularly. You have Spicer playing in the MLS regularly. So we have players who play at that level, so they should feel a little bit comfortable and they won't be overawed with the presence of some of the names that the Americans can call upon.
Yes, and just to build on a previous thing we spoke about in the last topic about the World Cup qualifiers, the frequency of playing these top quality teams, the players eventually become more calm and accustomed to this. This is where Kevin Molino and Jovan Jones come in. These guys who have played many years in the MLS, everybody knows Jovan Jones is practically a legend for many people in the MLS. Seattle Sounders, he spent a brief stint at Inter Miami, folks. Many of you don't know this, but he was there. And, Kevin Molino as well. And these guys, I spoke to them. You could see they're more mature. It comes with age, of course. And I really think these guys combined with Yorke will give them that little calm and address those issues that they need to address so we don't get overwhelmed. Because I'll make some comparisons. When we had the pandemic and, of course, when we played that friendly, when Terry was there, I would say it pretty much was, a brand new team that was just thrown to the wolves at the time. I understood the thought process at the time, but of course, it was just too many things that were not in our favor back then. But fast forward to now, this works well in our favor. And, tactically, we've seen some different formations. I mean, in the last game, and I'll talk about this quickly against Costa Rica, Alvin Jones got sent off, but he's not afraid to tinker a little bit at the back. Use those three center backs. We spoke about the lack of center backs in the squad. And I'm sure, at some point, maybe Andrew, we can actually get an interview with him when he gets back to Trinidad. We'll, catch him somewhere.
I think you should have asked him that today.
Yeah.
Should have asked him that today and put that as a note to ask him the next time to how is he, how he plan to deal with the limited amount of centre backs in the squad. That's a question that should be posted, right? At least he needs to be held accountable as to why are we so short in that area.
Yep.
Again, and I will qualify it with this statement. This is in no way me trying to say that I know more than Dwight Yorke. But I think that as a casual observer, I would really like to know the thought process behind not having more centre backs. Is it that we don't have enough quality centre backs? Is it that he looked at it based on how he wants to play? The two guys that we have are the only two best suited. Those are the kind of answers that I would like to hear for me to understand what his thought process is. And touching back on your point on confidence, and this is one thing I will always rate both Kevin Molino and Jovan Jones for. They have played at a fairly high level in the US, the highest level in the US. And Jovan had a stint both in Finland and I believe in Germany. He had a season or two there.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing I rate those two guys for, and they will be sorely missed when they eventually retire from the national team, is confidence. Jovan is not afraid of anybody. So I look at Jovan play, and when I see him play, it doesn't matter if he's coming up against Mexico, if he comes up against, he has that confidence where he thinks that I am either better than these guys or as good as these guys. And Molino is the same thing. He brings that presence where he's not overawed. He doesn't feel as if he's the underdog or he's less of a player than these guys. And I see it in the way in which the confidence in which they would give each other in tight spaces. Like they would play Molino in the ball with two players in his back, knowing that Molino has the confidence to shield the ball, protect the ball, and look for the look for the open player, and then run into space to collect the ball. I've seen that between Molino and Jovan a lot, so I think that augurs well if that filters through the squad where some of the younger players would get that sort of experience.
Yes, and it's something that will transition well into the next generation of players, and I'm really grateful because when he stepped away the first time, there is an interview we had with Kevin when he stepped away, and then now he's back. Because it's very important to have these guys to transition into that new generation and breed what I would like to think that the next cycle of players for maybe the next 5 to 10 years. It's very important to have these guys on the team and eventually even in the staff setup as well. It's very important. You are seeing it with all these big teams all over and small teams, quote unquote small. I don't like that term anymore. Where there's previous, star players being a crucial part of the coaching setup. And in some cases it works, in some cases it doesn't. But being around Kevin, speaking to him, seeing Jovan, even Alvin, and those guys who have done these campaigns before, it's working well. But heading into the actual starting lineup, so I know you addressed who you think it should be, so we kind of covered that already. But there's some it was an unusual occurrence, and I even brought it up with Dwight Yorke because I had limited time in the press conference, unfortunately. But the absence of Levi Garcia. A lot of people don't know why he's absent because he got married, folks. So before you jump on the guy and say why he's getting married, I'm pretty sure this was arranged way in advance. I think Dwight mentioned that in the interview as well. I don't think they sat down and be like, okay, let's have the wedding for the Gold Cup. But it is one of those things, and it's kind of one of the light-hearted moments in what is a serious conversation. But it would have been really nice to have Levi in a game like this. He is, in what I consider our star player. He's another player who has no issues with confidence. He's strong. He got massively quicker. I mean, physically, you could see the difference when I first met him all the way back in 2015, 2016. He's playing at a high level in Europe. He's constantly going from high-level clubs. I know everybody follows the EPL and those other things, but AEK Athens, even when he was in the Eredivisie, with I can't remember. You'll remember as well. Azin Alkmaar.
Yeah.
This is a guy who I think has a good future with the national team. I mean, he's not that young anymore, but he's at that right age when at games like this, I think we're going to get the best out of Levi Garcia. He has had injury concerns. It seems to be popping up. But what do you think about him missing this game? And would we have? I think I'm asking an answer here, but what do you think about Levi being absent?
Well, two things. Congratulations to Levi. I mean, as soon as I saw what happened, I went to his page, IGP, and instantly congratulated because I'm happy for him. It's a big moment for him to make that commitment and get married. So kudos and congratulations to him and his wife. Mm-hmm. A lot of comments, people have been making a couple of comments and people just being silly. And that's just as I like to say, that's the interneting.
Correct.
Because people just, tend to be internet bullies behind the keyboard. Mm-hmm. But I'm happy for him and he already got the permission from the team. I don't think that permission was granted last week for this week. I think it was something that they knew all along, and it worked out pretty well for us in the sense that if you wanted Levi to miss one game, which game wouldn't mind him missing? I would choose the USA game because that's the game, that's the toughest team, and that's the game with or without Levi we're most likely going to lose. So it's not an inferiority complex towards the USA or anything like that, but it's just the reality. Although they're in a bad run, they're still one of the top 15 teams in world football. So they are strong, a very, very strong unit. So if I had to pick which game for him to miss. I definitely want him for Haiti because I think we have a real chance of beating Haiti. And I definitely want him to against Saudi Arabia because I think we could match Saudi Arabia in some aspects. And I would want our team to put a good show in there. And also, there's a wonderful opportunity for one of the younger players, whether it's Isaiah Lee or I think Isaiah Garcia. Isaiah Lee Cock, I think, Bongo, for him to come on and because he scored a fantastic goal against Jamaica in the Unity Cup. So he might get an opportunity to, show himself against pretty high level opposition. So yeah, Levi, we would miss him, but I would rather him miss this game and go guns full blazing to get two good results against Haiti and then Saudi Arabia, and then obviously we'll have him for the rest of the tournament once we qualify.
Yes, yes. It's an unusual scenario, and I saw Dwight Yorke. I mean, he has always been known as a smiling, you know, assassin among other people,
Yeah.
but we know him as that as well. So it was interesting to see in such a serious press conference his reaction to that, and hopefully next time, even if it's not a press conference, we could get him in a exclusive and have a sit down and ask him his questions and his plans and get some insight. Of course, Alvin Jones, we brought him up earlier. Americans have nightmares about this guy, not just in for the 2018 qualifiers with that torpedo of a goal, which is insane, but also even in that Concacaf Nations League, he scored. I remember even making this gesture before he even took the shot. I was like, "Yep, he's probably going to score because that's when he scores." He loves to score against the US. And like I said, I'll just read out some stats on SofaScore, who we have a nice deal with. They give us data insight that adds a little bit of validity to some of our statements. Just looking at the form guide, overall historically, 33 matches, the USA, as always, their favorites. 25 matches they won, 4 draws, and TNT won 4 games. And normally, if you just look at those numbers, it looks very dire for us. But those 4 games that we did win, and a couple of those draws were usually crucial games. And in the last 3 games, I like to look, as I said in the last videos, at more recent fixtures. The 2-1 in the Nations League, 3-0, and obviously that 6-0 in the last Gold Cup. We're hoping to do better this time around. And I'm not going to repeat what we said before, but gauge ourselves. And even formation wise, USA against Turkey and Switzerland, Pochettino seems to really like that 4-2-3-1 formation. We saw it at PSG. It didn't work at the time. Of course, he's coming out under a lot of criticism from the US. They expect a lot from their players, which is maybe another discussion we could have on another time. I could probably bring in Thomas Rongan, who's a great friend of mine, works at BN Sports Inter Miami. It'll be a great combination to have the three of us. But Pochettino has to get not just win, but I think he needs to win well in this game. So, matching up what I've seen in his last couple of games, especially the last 2, he does favor that 4-2-3-1, which is one of my favorite formations if you have the right players. Now that we know, it could be different. He may spring a surprise on us. But guessing from your analysis on Dwight Yorke's approach versus Pochettino's favored 4-2-3-1, and also Pulisic, just a side note, there's a lot of controversy in the US amongst the fans. Donovan not being happy with Pulisic, requesting to not be there because he's preserving himself for the World Cup. He got a lot of criticism for not asking to play in the friendlies before this Gold Cup, but not playing the Gold Cup. A lot of commitment issues are being raised towards the American players. It's something that they've been plastered with for the last couple of years. They're saying, they are a very privileged generation and their talent doesn't really manifest on the world stage. So they have a lot of things on their shoulder, they need to get rid of. I would even say a bit of a chip. The USA, whether rightfully or maybe some people might say slightly a bit delusional at times, but I think they're an ambitious team, that they're very eager to prove themselves on the world stage. It's a very American thing. But with all that being put aside, tactically, 4-2-3-1 versus Dwight Yorke, how do you think that's going to match up?
It's gonna revolve around consistency. It's gonna revolve around discipline and execution. And the only way you get these things is by repetition at the highest level. So while you might have the best formation to match another formation, if the players are not executing on the pitch, then it becomes difficult to get the desired result. So this is where I think USA has a slight advantage over us, is that when you have players who are more disciplined and you have players who are playing at a high level that have to be always on in line with their formation, or how knowing where they have to be, knowing how they have to position themselves. Then it becomes a little tricky to execute against these bigger teams. Because I'm worried about our defense, and you could saw as you saw against Costa Rica, sorry, you saw that there are times we were ball watching. There was a little bit of defensive lack of concentration, etc. And at the higher level, these players don't ball watch. They are trained because they know they have been so ingrained where if you only ball watch once, they are playing week in and week out against quality strikers who will hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's ingrained in them week in and week out, even in training sessions. Because one of the good things I heard that Ajani spoke about, I was really happy to hear. I mean, he heard from time to time, over and over, but he spoke about the intensity of training. And you always hear about at the high levels. I listen to Roy Keane and I listen to um, some of these older players who are doing punditry now, and they speak about how intense. Paul Scholes spoke about it as well, how intense training would be. Training in some instances used to be more intense than the actual games. So once you're playing with that intensity in training, it gives you another layer of professionalism and another layer of discipline, another layer of concentration that you could translate or transfer onto the football field when the game starts. So listening to Ajani speak today or yesterday, I think he did the interview with Sean. He spoke about the intensity of the training sessions being higher than he ever experienced before. So it's showing that, while in the training, Dwight Yorke is impressing on these players to always be at a level. You're not just going through the motions in training because you think it's training. No. Training, what you do, as Granny always say, what you practice at home is what you'll do outside. So what you do on the training pitch is what you more often than not be expected to translate on the pitch. And it doesn't matter how good you are. No matter if you feel you better than everybody else. You need to do it in training. And to speak about the matchups, I think that's where the advantage lies between Trinidad and the US, having those players who are constantly playing at the highest level. And there's one thing that just to touch on in terms of the way in which we could compete in games like this, where we are the obvious underdog. And this is something that Stephen Hart told me some years ago. I think it was 2017 or 2016. I still sit down with Stephen Hart at a stadium in the States after the game he was talking. And he said that player for player, we cannot compete with the likes of Mexico, USA, Costa Rica. We cannot compete with these players, with these teams, player for player or man for man. While they would have 11 players playing at a high level, we might have 4 or 5. And I was then with the strongest squad. But we had Kenwin and stuff in that squad. And he said, what we need to do is to let our 4 or 5 players play consistently at a high level where they bring up the others so that they are able to, in short spurts, match the intensity of these stronger teams. So while we don't match them player for player, because we have the Levi, we have Kevin Molino, we have Daniel Phillips who's playing at a high level. We have these players who can raise their game to the point where we can match them in the backbone of our squad. And then other players who may not necessarily be playing at as high a level would mimic that behavior and be able to raise their intensity and battle with these teams. So and that was the crux of Stephen Hart's approach to when we had such a fantastic run with him where, and we didn't win anything or qualify for any World Cups, but that's when we were drawing with Mexico, Triol, we were beating Panama, we beaten Honduras. We had a strong team that competed. In fact, there was one time we drew it with Mexico, and Mexico, I think they didn't like it. So after the World Cup, they called us for a friendly to play again. I think we drew again 4-4.
Yep.
I don't know if it's 3-3 then 4-4 or 4 then 3-3. But I know that it was
4-3.
Yeah, it was 2 epic games against a Concacaf and world football power because Mexico is a world football power.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody beats Mexico easily. right? Mexico puts up a fight against all the European powers, all the South American powers. They're a strong team, and we were matching them stride for stride. So it's that sort of energy we need to translate in this team. We have a lot of good young talent there, and I think if once these guys have that no fear factor and they learn from the strong the older heads, the veterans in the squad of the Alvins, the Jovins, and the Kevins of this world, I think we should be giving a good account of ourselves tomorrow. And in all reality, and I'm going to be realistic here, I don't expect us to win tomorrow. I don't expect us to beat the US tomorrow, but I expect us to give a good account of ourselves where at the end of the game, similar to against Costa Rica, because even though we were down halftime 2-0 to Costa Rica, I was smiling during that game because I'm like, oh my God. We played, I mean, yeah, we had a couple of defensive lapses and we considered 2 goals, but we gave them a run for their money in that first half. And the second half, we continued, So, I mean, Marvin made some saves, but at the end, we also hit the post. I think Bato hit the post with a header. And then we had a couple of opportunities where Kylian Navas had to make a couple of saves as well. So I'm looking for the same energy tomorrow. The USA is a strong team. Just note that USA, normally they're stronger in USA's strongest squad. I don't know if people know this, but in the USA's strongest squad, hardly anybody plays in the MLS. In Canada's strongest squad, none of their players play in the Canadian Premier League. All of the players are exported. So yeah, we are happy. We are happy to match them stride for stride, but just know that they have a wealth and a strong pool of players to call from. And we're hoping to get a good matchup tomorrow.
Yes, correct. And just to touch a little bit on the Costa Rica game, I personally believe if Alvin Jones did not get sent off, it was highly possible we could have probably sneak a 2-2 draw. Because we were looking dangerous on the counter, and Costa Rica were trying to stifle that counter. And Levi, when he gets on that run, looked very deadly. And there was a couple times he got past, and perhaps maybe 1 second too long. But that was interesting, and of course we all know how that turned out. There was a full reaction by me. You could check that video. I'll put that up in the links up here. You could take a click and check that out. So just to end things off, objective wise, we both I think understand the task at hand. What I would say is that one advantage we have, and this is not from a tactical standpoint, but USA are going through a bit of a identity crisis in terms of their players trying to prove themselves. Pochettino trying to prove himself. The players being accused of being soft when they get pressed too much. The whole pay for play system. It's a whole narrative in the US right now that, they're talking about with the players basically being too soft. And I'm hoping, our players, take it to them, shake them up a little bit and, possibly knock them off their momentum. I mean, I shouldn't say the momentum, but, definitely make the game more balanced. And who knows?
Attack their confidence because they're going to come into this game against us very confident.
Yes.
And I think if we start well, it might shake them up a bit. So I'm looking forward to the encounter.
Yes, it's very exciting. So, I mean, personally, from an analytical standpoint, and folks, I want to be very clear there, and Andrew has it as well. As Trinidad and Tobago fans, we always want Trinidad and Tobago to win. We won't be doing these videos and following Trinidad and Tobago all these years if we did not want us to win. But, we can take off the fanboy sunglasses and, from an analytical standpoint, the US are favorites. But you never know. That's a wonderful thing about football. So that's be kind of sitting on the fence, but being real at the same time. Kind of dancing on the fence, Andre. So, folks, let us know what you think in the comment section below. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow? What do you think the scoreline is going to be? What do you think about the lineups? Who you think should be on the team? Everything. We listen to everything. I would love to hear your thoughts, comments, and suggestions. Andre and I will answer the best way we can. And, always, try to bring the content as swiftly as we can. And, we'll do a reaction after the game. But before we go, Andre, one last thing. Optimistically, overall, outside the USA game, I know Dwight Yorke indicated that, realistically the objective, and rightfully so, is to get out of the group. What do you think about that?
I think it will come down to, again, the games against Haiti and Saudi Arabia. I don't know what shape Haiti is in. They just lost 5-1 to Curacao. So I'm not sure what shape Haiti is in. So if we get a result there, then it'll be a fight between us and Saudi Arabia for the final spot. So I think we have a chance. The game against Costa Rica has given me a lot of confidence in the way in which we can play on the front foot against these teams. But the game against St. Kitts also make me realize that despite our front foot prowess, we kind of frail at the back. So it's a kind of mixture of both emotions to me. I think if we get our defense together, we will be a formidable team in this tournament and beyond.
Yes, yes.
And we have two good goalkeepers in the back. We have Denzel and we have Marvin, who's in pretty good form as well. So
Yeah, of course,
so
Marvin was amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, quite a legend.
So
Along with John and those guys.
I want to say on Marvin because I did question his place in the squad because I always thought that they would have given the opportunity to a younger player, but Marvin has proven me wrong. So I wanted to put up my hand, and I understand that he's there fully on merit, and he deserves his place in the squad. And as long as he's performing at a high level, he's probably doing it in trading as well. As long as he continues, kudos to him, and long may him continue.
Yes, yes. Good luck to the guys, and we'll see how it goes tomorrow. So, folks, for more, updates, scores, and general information, we have a wonderful deal with SofaScore. I'd like to say a special thank you to them. They give us these cool stats and formations and so on. There's so much data that anything that we can't discuss here, there are write-ups on exevmedia.com that breaks down things a bit more, tactically with graphs and so on. For those who like that stuff, like myself. And for those of you who want to see the two Andres speak, well, you could see that here. So you can head over to exevmedia.com. So with that being said, Andre, we'll definitely have both of us will be looking at the game and we'll see how it turns out. And we'll definitely do a post-match reaction. So Andre, it's always a pleasure. And folks, we'll see you after the game.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching Extra Time TV. Don't forget to like and subscribe.